I want to start off by telling you a little bit about me, why I became interested in photography, why I teach this class. I don't know how many of you got to poke around on my website before coming today, but I am a full-time public school teacher. I teach technology over at Guilford Elementary in Sterling. I don't know if any of you have kids in Lovettsville Elementary, but I know your computer lab teacher really well, Lori. She's wonderful. So that's my full-time gig. Photography is part-time for me right now. About 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, a friend of mine started a project on the internet called Project 365. Have any of you tried a 365 project before or know what it is? No? It's where you take a photo a day for an entire year. And I saw her pictures popping up on Facebook each day. She was taking some sort of picture to document her life. She did not have any kids, but her pictures were really, really interesting, and all I had was this point-and-shoot camera, and I was like, I really should learn how to use this more. This was back before my husband and I had kids, and I was like, you know what, I should get into this. So I picked up my point-and-shoot camera and started taking pictures. At that time, we were starting to think about starting a family, and I said to myself, I don't want to have to pay a professional to take pictures. I started like poking around the internet, and I'm like, professional photography can get really, really expensive. And so I wanted to learn how to use my camera to the best of its ability. So I started doing that project. My skills really started to get better, and then we found out we were pregnant. And so my parents, they invested in a DSLR camera for me as an early baby gift, and it was really exciting because it was right about the time that I started to feel like I learned as much as I could about my point-and-shoot camera. You'll find as you start learning about photography, you really know when it's time to upgrade. Maybe Joanna can kind of nod and say the same, because you start to feel like, oh, I can't get the effect that I want to, or I can't do what I want to with my camera. And so it was time for me to upgrade, and it was perfect timing because we were going to have a baby. And then in September of 2009, we ended up losing the pregnancy. I was 20 weeks pregnant, and that was our first daughter, Bella, and devastating for us. We did not live in Lovettsville at the time. Actually, the year after we lost her, my husband changed jobs. We decided to buy a house. It was a year of change and growth for our family. And so when we lost the pregnancy, that camera that I had to take pictures of a baby, I used instead to really process the feelings of grief and sadness and all those rough emotions that came with losing our daughter. And I started blogging about the experience, and my blog, it was interesting because people that wouldn't usually come talk to me about the loss really started to understand the feelings and emotions we were going through, and they were looking at our pictures. And a friend that I hadn't heard from in years sent me a message on Facebook one day and said, hey, your pictures are beautiful. Will you take some photos for our Christmas card? The loss is in September. This was about October, November. And I was like, oh crap. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I actually called Lexi, my friend Lexi that's sitting right here, and her son was about, 3 at the time? And I was like, can I take pictures of you and Alex? Because I don't know what I'm doing. So we went out, we took pictures, and my portrait business was born out of that experience. I did have a portrait photography business for about a year and a half, and during that time I became pregnant again with our daughter Brielle, who's sound asleep upstairs for now. And when I got pregnant with her, I decided I didn't want to be out every weekend taking pictures of other people's kids at that time. So I put the portrait photography business to rest. And when we moved out to Lovettsville, I started teaching this Momtographie class about once a quarter. I teach it about 4 times a year. And it's been the best of both worlds because I'm a teacher by day. I love teaching. I teach adults in my day job. I get to work with kids too, but I teach adults how to use technology. And so this kind of fits really well for me. So I love getting moms together. So a bulk of our time today is going to be spent talking about exposure, and a lot of you have heard of these terms before: ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, and they all have to be in balance to take a properly exposed picture. So what happens, your camera is basically a huge light box. Without light, your camera can't work. So light comes into the lens, and you have these settings. We're going to talk about each one individually, and when these settings are all set the right way, based on the light that's coming in through the lens, you get a picture that looks amazing. But if your settings aren't set properly for the light that's coming in, your picture's not going to look good at all. All right, and the first setting we're going to talk about is shutter speed, because I think it's the easiest one to kind of grasp onto and understand. Shutter speed is basically how fast or how slow your camera is working. So you push down your shutter button and it clicks. You know, you can hear the click in your camera when it's taking a picture. A fast click is a fast shutter speed, and a slow clicking that you're hearing is a slow shutter speed. The thing that affects that shutter speed is light. So the more light you have, the faster your shutter can work. The less light you have, the slower your shutter can work. And that's why you all get frustrated when you get a blurry picture in the evening in your house, because there's not a lot of light. So your camera's working very, very slowly. Your flash pops up and flashes because there needs to be more light. But there are other settings that we can kind of manipulate to help boost this shutter into being quicker, into working faster for us. All right? To kind of break down shutter speed a little bit more for you, this is how shutter speed is working. So, like I just said, slow shutter means our camera is working slow, and we might get a blurry picture. The faster our shutter speed is, the more likely it is that we can freeze motion that's happening and that there's more light going on. And these are the numbers that we'll see. Shutter speed is working in fractions of a second. So inside your camera, when we look in your camera in just a second, you're going to see the bottom number of this fraction. 30, 60, 100, 250. And that's a fraction of a second. So 1/30th of a second, 1/60th of a second, 1/100th of a second, 1/250th of a second. If your kids aren't moving, haha, or if you aren't moving, the best shutter speed to keep your camera at is 1/60th of a second. So if you see a 60, where the shutter speed number is, you can safely click and have a clear image. Again, that's if your kids aren't moving and you're not moving. So that's the kind of the challenge. Faster numbers will freeze motion even better when your kids are playing sports or when they're running around the house. So I like to, if I can, look for about 1/100th of a second. We're just kind of playing around the house and goofing around. Sports, soccer games, all of those things, I would want even higher. Would you say it's about the same for you too, Joanna? Or, yeah? Yeah. All right. Questions about shutter speed? Where to find it? We need to look for it on your camera next. So, what I want you to do is look through the viewfinder of your camera. Slow shutter speeds down here, we might see really low numbers. You might see like 10, 5. If you look through your viewfinder, it's the number all the way on the left. You kind of have to push your shutter down just a little bit to get those numbers to pop up through your viewfinder. So just kind of point it around to different places. You can even get up if you want to, because going over to the window, you will probably see a higher number than if you're sitting in your seat. You may not even need to get up. You may just be able to point it over there. What numbers are you guys seeing right now?
80.
80, like towards the window?
Uh-huh.
What about like at the ground?
15, 20.
15, 20, yeah.
And
So you can kind of see
Yeah.
80 is much better than 15 or 20 you wouldn't want to take a picture. It's probably going to turn out blurry. Those are the situations where you would want to use a tripod or really make something, take a picture of something that's not moving.